Chris Hani's killer, Janusz Walus, is set to be deported from South Africa today. He will head back to his home country of Poland. That announcement made by a number of ministers in Pretoria just earlier today. The Minister of Justice, Mamoloko Kubai, also saying that the Hani family and the SACP have requested for an inquest into the matter. Well, let's bring in now the SACP's spokesperson, Dr Alex Mashilo. Thanks very much indeed for your time this afternoon. And what a day this must be, not only for the party, but of course for Chris Hani's widow, Dr Hani, an event that almost took our country to the brink of a civil war, now culminating in Chris Hani's murderer, Janusz Walus, likely to receive a hero's welcome when he returns to Poland.
It is indeed a disappointing day, but it all goes back to the November 2022 judgment by the Constitutional Court, in terms of which the then Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Ronald Ramola, was instructed by the Constitutional Court to place Janusz Walus, the convicted assassin, on parole within 10 days of that judgment. It was on the 21st of November 2022. So now we are sitting with a reality where that particular parole, which brought about anger to the Chris Hani family and the SACP, but also to millions of other South Africans, the majority being the working class and poor, as well as the larger population of the historically oppressed. We are sitting with the consequences of that particular judgment.
Dr. Mashilo, government efforts, according to the statement by the SACP, it acknowledges government's efforts to consult not only with your party, but also with Dr Hani. But was that enough, especially given that this consultation, this effort to reach out to the SACP and Dr Hani was on the eve of the end of Janusz Walus's parole?
We met with the government delegation led by Deputy President Paul Mashatile. I was at the meeting myself as part of the SACP delegation led by our General Secretary, Solima Baid. And we expressed our concerns that while we appreciate the fact that the government this time around reached out to the Hani family and the SACP, and we commended them for that, we also expressed concerns that it was on the eve of the convicted assassin's parole coming to an end. The meeting started at 8 p.m. last night, and the convicted assassin's parole was coming to an end at midnight last night. So you can see there was just a limited time between that information session and the plans that had already been drawn up, including his deportation to Poland. And it appeared to us, all this emanated from how the Department of Correctional Services, led by Dr. Peter Groenewald, who is also the leader of the Freedom Front Plus, handled the matter. We said, as the SACP and the Chris Hani family, to the government delegation led by the Deputy President, that no other family of apartheid victims or other victims should be treated in that manner, because the Department of Correctional Services must have known a while back that this day is coming. They had enough time to notify the Department of Home Affairs and for the Department of Home Affairs to start the process. So they notified the Department of Home Affairs on Wednesday last week, and the Minister of Home Affairs, given the enormity of this matter, decided to take it to the Justice cluster and then to the Cabinet. That's where the decision to reach out to the Hani family and the SACP, but as well as the ANC was reached. So you can see from Wednesday last week, and the Cabinet met only this week Wednesday. So that was just not enough time.
Dr. Mashilo, there is now a request by the SACP and Chris Hani's widow that an inquest be opened. This inquest, according to the government statement, will be referred to the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. What are you trying to achieve with this inquest?
Firstly, our request for this inquest had long gone to the Department of Justice when Mr. Ronald Ramola was the minister of that department, and they have the request. So what we were doing last night was to reiterate the request. There is evidence that the apartheid regime ignored when, during the trial of the convicted assassin Janusz Walus and Clive Lewis. Mehdi Hani led our delegation yesterday in sharing information regarding that piece of evidence with the Deputy President and the delegation of 3 ministers who attended the meeting. In addition, the murder weapon that was used to assassinate Chris Hani was not bought from a shop. It was from military armory. It was a defense force. It came from the South African Defense Force, who took that murder weapon from military armory. Which hands did it go through, pair by pair, until it was used to assassinate Chris Hani? At this moment, no one has been held accountable in that regard. Clive Lewis' wife was implicated in compiling a list of the people who were targeted in the assassination. The manner in which she was released just after the 2 were arrested leaves much to be desired. It's a subject of investigation, but there are more other factors which inform our request for this inquest. For example, Janusz Walus came from Poland. If you look at a time when he arrived in South Africa and when he was given the South African citizenship, there is just so much that leaves much to be desired, and we cannot disconnect that, or we cannot look at that in isolation from the assassination he was involved in carrying out. So what we want to achieve is a full disclosure of the truth and all the circumstances surrounding the assassination of Chris Hani. Because until there is full disclosure and of the truth and all the circumstances, there will be no closure for the family, the SACP, and the South African working class. We want disclosure as part of a nation-building process, but as part also of accountability.
I think you've already answered my next question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. In a few hours' time, Janusz Walus will no longer be on South African soil. Why is it so important that we get all of the answers around the murder of Chris Hani?
I have answered the question. Every person who was involved in planning the assassination, every person who had prior knowledge about the assassination and did nothing about it, thereby allowing it to occur, every person who participated in the execution of the assassination must be held accountable. Until then, justice in this case will remain incomplete. And the family, the SACP, and the larger working class will be living under conditions of the absence of full disclosure of the truth.
Dr. Alex Mashilo, let me thank you for your time this afternoon, spokesperson of the South African Communist Party. It is our top story this hour. Chris Hani's killer, Janusz Walus, is set to return to his home country of Poland today.